Hello everyone, today in this video we will be discussing the third module of web development, which is regarding the JavaScript. Okay, first thing is about the JavaScript and second thing is about the PHP. Okay, so this module is divided into these two parts. Okay, so if I show you the syllabus, what all the topics we have to discuss today is firstly about the JavaScript things. How much is JavaScript is still here. Okay, this half is about the JavaScript and the rest is PHP. Okay, so why are we studying about JavaScript is because to add some animations and functionalities to the web page, since we have been writing the web page in HTML and CSS, so it was just about the displaying functions, right? That page was not interactive. By using JavaScript we can make it a bit more interactive than before, so we'll be learning what all you have to do. So what are the things you need to focus on this in this module that I'll be discussing now. So the things which you need to focus is the questions are here. Okay, firstly the advantages. Okay, note it down, advantages and disadvantages of JavaScript. That's the first question which you have to keep in mind. I'll be discussing that when I'll be sharing with you the points. So that's the first point, advantages and disadvantages of JavaScript. The second point is the client side scripting and server side scripting. What is the difference between each of these? Okay, that's very important. And the rest of the things are like you need to know what is the basic syntax of JavaScript, how to write the JavaScript, what are variables, how to write the for loop and all, and the if conditions, how to write the functions. So each of these syntaxes you need to know along with the examples. That's the third point. And the fourth point is about the operators, logical operators, comparison operators, relational operators and boolean operators. Okay, that's the fourth point. And the fifth point is the document object model. Okay, so in document object model what happens is, if you have a code here like an input text here, how can you access this input text, what is the information present here, how can you change this information, those things will be running in DOM. Okay, a very important topic from exam point of view. And what else is there? Listeners. Okay, that's the sixth point, listeners. And on click events, that's also important. Okay, so these are the things which we'll be discussing. Anyways, as you'll be going through the topics, at that time I'll tell you what you have to keep in mind, so listen carefully and watch the video till the end. Okay, and same thing will be done for PHP as well. So before starting, if you like this video, hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Okay, so let's get started with the topics. So I'll be opening the textbook. See, for web development the textbook is the best. You need to you'll easily get to know what are the points you need to keep in mind, and it's beautifully explained, so I'm not writing any notes, and I'll be telling you what all you need to keep in mind here. So if you listen carefully you'll get to know. Okay, so this is the first topic, what is JavaScript and what it can do. And so here is just the history of JavaScript. So means what is JavaScript is, it just adds functionality to the existing HTML pages, and it is quite similar to the Java because it was used for the Java applets. So this is a brief history of JavaScript. What it can do is it can add more functionality and it can make the web page dynamic. Means if you type something at that time it will be responsive, and which was not possible in the HTML and CSS. And the main thing is starting from here. This is the first important question, client side scripting. What do you mean by client side scripting is, what do you mean by client? Client means the user, right? So if this is the user here, okay, if this is the user, client side scripting means whatever the code you have written, where is that getting executed? If it is client side scripting means it is getting executed in the same place where the client is present. So execute any JavaScript as required. So how does that happen is, suppose that you search for facebook.com, that facebook.com will go to the web server which is present in the place, and the HTML code for it will be returned. After the HTML code is returned along with the URL of JavaScript, at that time the JavaScript will be running in the same place here. If it's running in the same place, it's called as client side scripting. Okay, if it's running at a different place and it has many other layers, that's known as the server side scripting. And this is another thing, like you might use the Flash plugin and all. This is the additional means tools that is used with the JavaScript to make it more interactive. Okay, so most of the questions are not asked from here. The main point is you need to know what does client side scripting means. Client side scripting means the scripting happens at the client side itself. The code is sent from the web server after you make a request. After you make a request, the web server will send a response. That response will be having the JavaScript code and the HTML code, which will be running on the same side where the client is present. This is the main key point which you have to mention in client side scripting. In server side scripting, what happens, this whole thing will be happening at a different place in the server. So that is known as server side scripting. Wherever the scripting happens, that side scripting. Okay, that was the thing which you had to focus on this topic. And this is just the Adobe Flash, means third party apps which you are using to make it more interactive and adding more features. This also the same thing, the plugins and the Java runtime environment. And JavaScript's history, so it had started during 1998. So it's just as the other histories, what happens, like first we will try some things, if it doesn't work we will make it another better versions of it until the world adapts to the version which is suitable for it. So that's what the same thing happened. And the questions are not asked much from this topic, but what does it mean is, if you use without JavaScript, it will take a lot of time. Why? Because each time you click something, that update will go to that place, and that update will happen again, a new page will be refreshed and came here. But in JavaScript, what happens, if you click on update, at the same time it will get updated. That is known as asynchronous events. Okay, which we will be discussing in the upcoming topics in detail. Okay, see, normal HTTP request response loop take 2. Okay, so once you do it and you click something else, then again the request goes and again the response comes back, so it's a very long time. In JavaScript it happens at the same time. Okay, via JavaScript, browser dynamically updates the window to change the label and populate the list with the provinces of Canada. Instead of again selecting this one, again it will go and make a request. No, it will not happen like that. It will directly come here and it will populate the list with what are the things present here. That is known as asynchronous data request. Very important. Okay, that was the second point. And JavaScript design principles. Layers means what? If they ask you in the exam about the JavaScript layers, you can mention this: presentation layer, business layer, and data layer. So in this layers, what happens is, presentation is layer is for the UI, how the app should look like and the front features of it. Business layer is the logic layer, which is below the presentation layer. Data layer is the third layer, which has all the data stored, whatever the user is using. Okay, so if you see it in the visual representation, this is the JavaScript framework, and this is the asynchronous layer, validation layer, presentation, CSS, HTML. So these JavaScript layers together form the whatever website we use dynamically. Okay. And asynchronous means what? Basically asynchronous means not with the sync. Okay, means if you are doing something with the sync, at the same time it should happen. If this is happening at the same time, this should also happen at the same time. But asynchronous means what? This will not happen at the same time. This will send request to somewhere, it will happen parallelly somewhere else, and this will be doing something else. When this is done, it will come back and it will stop the other thing and it will do this thing. Okay, that is asynchronous. For that, it will be creating the different threads for different purposes, and the different small tasks will be done asynchronously. Okay, they are not in the sync with each other. That is the main feature of JavaScript. Okay, and users without JavaScript, so in exam this topic is not much asked, so I can skip that for now. And graceful degradation, progressive enhancement. Okay, so what is graceful degradation? Degradation means reducing the things, right? And progressive enhancement means adding the things. So suppose that this browser is there, this doesn't have JavaScript, and another browser is there, it has JavaScript, but it does not require all the features of JavaScript. Only it requires one feature like submitting button. So suppose that this there is user 1, this is user 2. User 1 likes the means approach of JavaScript for submitting the things. Okay, so he will ask the JavaScript user to give me this feature. So when this feature is given to him, that is known as progressive enhancement. Graceful degradation means, suppose JavaScript user does not like some of the features, removing that from the main JavaScript is known as graceful degradation. Okay, and where does JavaScript go? Okay, this is another important question, which is about the inline, embedded and external JavaScript. Like in CSS in the previous module, you need to know how to write the JavaScript in inline way, embedded way and external way. For all these three, the syntax is there. Let me show you. So this is what happens. This is the JavaScript browser and this is the JavaScript. This is the browser without JavaScript. As you can observe, value and date is just like an input, but using JavaScript you can change the color and the date by using this one. Okay, and the same thing, inline JavaScript. Okay, this is the thing which you need to keep in mind. Inline JavaScript will be written in the same line. Okay, like JavaScript open window. Okay, and on click is equal to are you sure, like that you will be writing. That is known as inline JavaScript, and the same line you are writing. And what is embedded? Embedded means at the top of the HTML page. This is the HTML page. Here, as for the CSS, you used to write style, right? For JavaScript, you need to write script. Okay, and whatever you write here, like script type is equal to text JavaScript. This is compulsory. Then closing text script. Inside this, you have to write the Java code, JavaScript code, which is in this case it is alert hello world. So whenever you open a web page, it will show alert this page says hello world. Okay. That is embedded one. External means you are just including the same thing in a different space, and you are writing in the HTML part within the head tag, like script type is equal to JavaScript, and source is which one? Greeting.js. Another file you have to create, greeting.js. In that you will be writing the JavaScript code, linking it with the HTML code here. That is known as external JavaScript. So in exam, if they ask, you have to mention these three with the syntax, meaning, and example. Okay. Just as how we did for CSS. So this topic is advanced inclusion of JavaScript, not important. Syntax, okay, this is very important. Syntax, what are the things you need to know is variables, assignments, conditionals, loops, and arrays. So if you already know the programming languages, you know these meanings, right? So what do these terms mean? I need not explain. So just I need to explain how it is written in JavaScript. So let's see the variables. For the variables, you need to write what? Var. You need not specify if it is int, float, string, char, or boolean value. Just have to write var. Okay, var x and the semicolon as usual, and var y is equal to 0, y is equal to 4. Like that, we will be doing the same thing. That is for the variables. And assignment by using equal to and the comparison operators. This also we know. Like this is the ternary operator. If this is true, and this will be executed. If this is false, this will be executed. Okay, and these are the means operators which are used. And the only difference between the other languages and JavaScript is this one, triple equal to. It checks the type, means both are int or not, both are float or not, like that. Logical operators also we know, and, or, and not. Conditionals, same as the other programming languages. If else condition, you will be writing like this. Loops also the same thing, while loop, for loop, and functions. So function, there is a slight difference. So to declare a function, what you will use, you will write first function, then the name of the function, the parameters, same as the C and C++. This is same, the name of the function, the parameters in it, and you will be writing just a word keyword function. Then within the block of code, you will be writing whatever function needs to do. Then return statement is also same, and calling the function is also same. The function name, the values will be passing, and semicolon. And alert means just if you write just alert good morning, at that time what will happen is your browser will open. At that time a message will come in window, alert good morning. Okay, that's all. And errors using try and catch. To use try and catch, you will be using this as follows. Try non-existent function. If you write any call any function which is not existing under the try block, at that time catch block will be executed. Error will be stored, whatever the error is, that will be stored here, and the alert will be shown as an exception was caused. Whatever that error is, that will be displayed here. Okay. To throw your own exceptions, you can explicitly write throw whatever the error is. And that was about the different types of syntaxes. JavaScript objects, constructors, and properties, methods. So what are constructors, properties, and methods? So you can just write a string line in this way also, where greeting is equal to good morning, or you can create an object of it and store it. Both are the same thing, like where greeting is equal to new string, a string object which has the value good morning. Properties also same, like what are the properties or the methods inside the objects. We will be discussing this in the upcoming topics more. So to create an array, where greeting is equal to new array, or you can directly write new array. The values also you can include here, or if you don't want to write array, just directly make an array, use square brackets here, inside that the values here. And traversing the array is also same. Greetings of 0 will be the first element in the array, and the greetings of 1 will be the second element in the array. And alert means whatever is there, it will be shown in the top of the page. Okay. And you can use the for loop as well. So greetings of I, each time the I will be 0, then it will be 1. So it will be the first one, hello, what was that, good morning and good afternoon. Okay. So this is how the values are stored. This is the array here. The array indexes are 0, 1, 2. In 0th position good morning, and first position good afternoon, and second position if you put it will be good evening. Okay. Modifying, you can use push to insert another element in the array. And math class is also there. You can use these functions, math.py, math.square root 4, math.random. String class is also there. You can use that to create an object, or else you can directly create as well. Okay. and what else is there? Date. Okay, date, how you write new date, and that will be stored in d dot toString to convert into string and print. You'll be using this method. Window object, so that's about the alert option. And this is the important one, document object model. In document object model, what we have is how to access the elements in the HTML page. Before that, we need to understand this tree here. So document, it consists of HTML code, that is the head and body, divided into two parts. Head is having meta and title, body is having the different types of tags, and each can have other subtags as well. So that's the DOM tree, means we need to know what are the different possible combinations. So mostly all the combinations are given in this place, and you can go through it to get to know what is the document hierarchy. Remember this hierarchy, it will be very helpful for your exams. Nodes means what? These are the nodes, which are the individual elements, that is known as the nodes. Okay, so this is one of the node, this is another node, another node. And one thing you need to know is this is the attribute node, and this is the text node, means this is the text part, this is the what is the attribute, right? So different names are given, and the whole is known as the element. And here are some of the properties you can go through, like next sibling, node name, node type, parent node, previous sibling. Means if you like, for example, if you write here previous sibling for this one, what is the previous sibling for this one? The previous sibling is this one, right? So this will be the output, like that we'll be using. Okay, document object, and these are some of the things which you could use, like to get the name of the document, var a document.doctype.name, var b document.input encoding. And okay, if you want to get a particular element here, like the latest comment, the id, so here we'll be using IDs. Okay, in JavaScript, to access any element we'll be using ID. So if ID is specified as this one, whatever is present here, that will be stored in the variable. So variable ABC is declared as what? Variable ABC is equal to document, this is the whole document, dot get element by ID, get an element through its ID. So ID is present here, and let's see if it matches. It is matching, so that's what we are going to select. Wherever the ID is, that whole block will be selecting. So if you have selected the whole block, that will be getting stored in ABC. If you print ABC or write alert ABC, this whole thing will be printed. Okay, and another one you can use is the tag name. So if you write tag name as div, so tag name is for the general purpose. So wherever you have div, this will also be selected, and this will also be selected, and that will be stored as an array. In the first part of the array, this will be stored, this whole code. Second part of the array, this whole code will be stored. Okay, so var list will have two items, which is the first and second part of code. Element node object, and modifying the, okay, element node object, how do you get element by ID? To modify it also, you will be using the same thing, dot inner HTML you will be writing. What I mean is, if you have okay, I have displayed this one, right? So document dot get element by ID, then I'll write here dot inner HTML, then whatever I want to write is equal to something. So whatever I write here, that will be displayed in the place of this one. Instead of Ricardo on September 15, whatever I write there, that will be displayed. That will be discussing the syntax in the upcoming topic. And some of the specific DOM element properties to certain tag types, this also mentioned here. And var latest is equal to document dot get element by ID, latest comment, latest dot inner HTML. So yeah, that's what I am talking about. Latest, variable latest, document dot get element by ID, latest comment. So latest comment, wherever it is, that ID will be selected. Okay, now you tell me where is the latest comment. The latest comment is present here. So what happens is, this thing will be selected, and that thing will be stored where? That thing will be stored in the latest. Then old message is equal to latest dot inner HTML. Inner HTML means whatever the message is there, that will be means stored in old message. Now what I am doing with old message is old message plus updated this div with JS, that will be added with the old message. So the new thing what we will be having is, instead of just having this, along with that we will be having this as well. So inner HTML will be edited using document dot element get element by ID and inner HTML. Okay, so latest dot inner HTML, that will get updated with this thing, which is nothing but this one. That's how you modify the elements using inner HTML. If you understand till this point, the 70% of the JavaScript is known to you. Fine, that's all what happens in the basic level. Just the other thing is the extra features and advanced features which are getting added, that accounts to 30%. Okay, so let's see what is there more in the topics. So here, if you want to change the background color or border width, you'll be selecting that particular element by its ID and changing the color and the width. And here the class and the additional properties, not that important. Now here is the important one, the listener and the event. Event means submitting or clicking something, that is known as event, and listener means what events happening, some listener should be there, then only you will get to know that the event has happened, right? So listener is also known as a checker, means the event happened or not, that will be checking. Okay, inline event handler approach. Okay, so div id is equal to example 1, on click alert hello, click for pop-up div. So what happens when you write this line of code is, observe carefully, it is a division tag, right? So a div tag will be there like this, and id, its id is example 1, so I'll write e1 on click alert hello, click for pop-up. So here it will be written click for pop-up. So when I click it, what should happen is on click alert hello. So when I click this, what will happen, a pop-up window will come here and it will say me hello. That's what happens. In the JavaScript I'll be writing here itself, so I need not have means a separate file for JavaScript, I'll be writing the inline itself. Okay, since it's one line of code, that is inline event handler approach. Okay, so here is about the old technique and the new technique. Okay, you can go through that. Listener approach, is for the listener approach you will be using like this, you will be taking a greeting box, means this is a variable name, get element by id example 1, then greeting box dot on click is equal to alert good morning. Separately you are writing, that is the listener approach. Okay, so that was the old one and this is the new one. In new one what will happen, add event listener after getting the element by id in greeting box, that greeting box dot add event listener, add event listener. If it is click, what you should show, if it is mouse out, what you should show. What is mouse out means, you will move your cursor till this point, if you remove from that point, that is mouse out. At that time the alert goodbye will be there, or you can even use attach event for click alert good morning. Just remember this syntax and explain in your own words. Okay, remembering the syntax is more important. Okay, and here's another example. There is a function here, display the date, and this function is getting called here. So what's happening here is, the function display the date says var d, so a d variable is created, new date will be stored, today's date will be stored, and alert you clicked on d dot to string, so whatever date is there it will be converted to string value and that will be displayed in the screen. So when it will happen, when you call this function. When will I call this function? I'll call this function when on click is equal to display date. Whenever I click on the element is something, I assume that this is element in the web page. If I click this, at that time the function will be called display the date, and this will happen. So the question is, what is this element? That element is nothing but document.getElement by id example 1. So in the div tag I have written example 1, right? This is the example 1. So whenever I click on this one, means the div tag was here. Okay, I have written example 1. Whenever I click on this one, at that time what will happen? This will happen. The new date will be displayed. Okay, in the top of the screen. So that's an example for listening to an event with a function. If they ask in exam, you have tried the same. Okay. Event object to handle some events. Use an event. There are three types of event: bubbles, cancelable, and prevent default. So if for example there is a form here and there is an empty username, if I click on submit, at that time what will happen? Empty username should not be submitted. It should say that it is an empty username. It should prevent submitting. It should cancel the request. For that we will be using cancelable and prevent default. So the syntax is as follows. If they ask in exam, you have to explain in the same way. What are the event types? Like mouse events, hovering the mouse, clicking the mouse, double clicking, holding it, or moving away from it. Mouse events, keyboard events, typing the different keys. So different types of mouse events are present here in JavaScript, and the different types of key events in JavaScript is present. On key down, on key press, on key up. On key down means this is the key. Okay, key K. If you click this, it will be on key down. On key press means if you hold it. On key up means if you release it. For each of these events, you can make some different means what it should do. That logic you can define. For example, document.getElement by id key example. So there is an example. There is a input field here, or there is a HTML field. There is some field here, and that field's id is key example. So I have taken the access for this one. And on key down, whenever I come to this place and click some key, at that time what should happen? Where key press is equal to e dot key code. So key code of whatever the key I press in keyboard, that will be extracted, and that will be converted from char code to the string value. And alert key character was pressed means whatever the character it was there, it was converted to the from string to char code, and that value will be displayed in the alert message. So if I type here k, it will display you typed k, like for example key k was pressed, and if I press as x was pressed, like that it will show. Okay, that is known as the key listeners. And the two things, the most listeners and the key listeners. Then we have the form events. What is form? Form is nothing but we'll have some inputs and the answers we have to write and we'll have to submit. Okay, so we can use these things here: on blur, on change, on focus, on reset, on select, and on submit. Whenever it's required, we can use these events here. So for example, if you have to click, whenever the user clicks on submit, at that time, if the user's pass, means pass is nothing but the password value. If the password is empty, it should show enter a password and prevent default, means prevent from accessing the next web page, because without password how can you access the next web page, right? For that, making that check, you have used the JavaScript in this form. Okay, so if they ask you what is the use of JavaScript and how do you catch the on submit event, at that time you have to give this example. Then we have the frame events: on abort, on error, and load resize, and it's not that much asked. And these are the forms. So as we know, in the previous case also we had written this form. It has 3 inputs here: username, password, and submit. Validating form means checking if the form is empty, same thing as we did for the password. If it was empty, we will be preventing default. Same thing goes for username here as well. If it's null or empty, we'll be doing e.prevent default. Number validation: if the number is a parse float or it is finite, at that time it should be accessing, otherwise it should not be able to access. That was about the number validation. In the same way, submitting forms also can be done using the JavaScript, using this line of code. And yeah, basically that's what is in the JavaScript. Means whatever I told you to keep in mind, that's the means from there the questions are asked, so pay more attention to those parts. Okay, so that's all about the first chapter. Let's move on to the second chapter, which is PHP. This is the next half of the module, and if you see what are the questions asked under this topic, means about the PHP, it's similar to what is being asked under the JavaScript. So let's go through the questions. So here's the question. See, with an example, explain the PHP tags, PHP comments, data types, and constants. So you must be thorough with the means the syntax and the variables, how you write the comments, and the if else conditions, switch statements, while loop, for loop, those syntaxes. Okay, for that you need to be thorough with. Okay, and by giving a syntax and example, explain if else in PHP, what are the functions. Yes, you need to know how to write the functions as well. And something about the server side technology, because PHP is server side, and you have to write a PHP program to demonstrate session program, store pages, view, count, on refresh. You're looking that in the later stage. And PHP module, and two approaches to embed the PHP script in HTML. Okay, so how can you write the PHP script in HTML? There are two ways. Either you can write the PHP along with HTML or separately from HTML. Those two methods are there, that also will be looking. So yeah, that's basically it, which you need to focus from this second half of the module. Okay, so let's get started. I'll be touching means all the topics, and I'll be telling you which are the topics that you must focus more on. Okay, what is server side development? As we had seen in the previous part, that the client side development means the development happens in the client side, means the execution of JavaScript program will happen where the user is sitting at the same place. The execution of JavaScript will happen, but in server side what happens is the code will go to the server side and that will get executed, only the output will be sent back. Whereas in client side what happens, the code will be sent here and it will get executed here only, the output also will be shown here only. Okay, that's the difference between client side and server side. That's what is mentioned here. You can go through it and you'll get some points. Server side script resources. So yeah, this is what I was talking about. Client side execution means what, the script will be sent here and the script will be executed here, then the means the output will be displayed. Whereas in the server side what happens, you'll be getting the output from the PHP execution. The execution will happen in the server side, the output only will be sent and that will be displayed here. Okay, no execution will happen in the client side. That's the main difference. And yeah, this is the PHP code and the script input, and this is the output. In between that it can go to the database, web service, files, emails, and other software. So it has access to many resources. What has access to many resources? The server scripts. If the server script is there, it can access either of these resources. Okay, that's what is mentioned here. Comparing server-side technology, there are different server-side technology like ASP, ASP.NET, and JSP, Node.js, Perl, PHP. Okay, these are the different examples. And the difference between ASPX and PHP: here ASPX file is sent, here PHP file is sent, and the execution is happening here, and the execution is happening here as well, and they output the JSS and HTML JavaScript, which is the output that is sent back to the browser. Okay, it's pretty similar to each other, only the syntax is differed. And web servers responsibilities: Apache and Linux. Apache and Linux are just different forms of languages which you will be using. It runs as a daemon on the server, and it's an executing instance of a program. What is a daemon? It's an executing instance of a program. Okay, means a process. Daemon is nothing but a process. Okay, that runs in the background. So Apache will activate that. So here, as you can see, PHP is there, Apache is there, and Linux is there. Linux is the operating system, and inside that Apache is there, which is the background application, and PHP runs on top of that. So this is the working of the three together: Linux, Apache, and PHP. And these are just the general informations of what is PHP and Apache and all. So you just need to know that what is Apache and what is Linux and what is PHP and where do they lie in the operating system. And these all you need not much focus on that. Multi-threaded means the multiple requests happening at the same time. PHP internal means it consists of the PHP core, extension layer, and Zend engine. The Zend engine is nothing but it's just as our compiler. Okay, so here's the code that gets converted to tokens. The tokens get parsed and the expressions form, and the compiler compiles them, and that will be sent as opcodes to the executor. Okay, that is the same principle of compiler the Zend engine uses. Okay, and here we have the installing of Apache PHP and MySQL for local development. So this is just for the information of how to download. And here starts the main the module, the second half of the module. The second half of the module, the main part starts from here. Quick tour of PHP. Okay, so what is PHP tags? Each of these code which you can see here, that is starting from opening tag, question mark, and PHP. Then whatever the code of PHP we need to write, we will write there, and after that we will be writing question mark and closing tag. This is known as the opening and closing tag of PHP. That's an important question from exam point of view. Okay, and as you can see here, this is the HTML part, and wherever we want to include the PHP part, we will be including from question mark PHP, and whatever code we want to write, we will write here. Again, close it with question mark and closing tag. Okay, that's about the PHP tags. And PHP comments: how do you write a comment is you'll be writing a single line comment in this way by using hash, or by using double slash, or by using slash star and star slash. Okay, if you want multi-line, that is how you write the PHP comments. Also, this is an important question from exam point of view, which is how to write the PHP in two different styles. This is one mixing HTML and PHP, PHP again HTML, again PHP, HTML, PHP, HTML, and PHP. This one approach. The second approach is having a PHP file in a separate folder, and that we are just including the source link in the HTML file. Okay, those are two ways, two approaches for PHP coding. This is an important question. Okay, and variables, data type, and constants. So here, as in the as like JavaScript, unlike of Java and C, we need not specify the int or char it is. Just we can write the variable name by including $sign and the variable name and the value is assigned to it. Okay, that is how you write the values in the variables. And to define constants, you'll be writing like this: define database local as localhost. So after you have defined that, you need not include the $sign. Okay, it can be referred without using the dollar symbol. Writing to output: for the output you will be using echo, and if you want to write the variable also along with the other echo statement dot that variable name along with dollar, so that Ricardo will also be displayed. Hello Ricardo will be the output. Same thing goes here as well. And yeah, that's all what you need to know, how to write the output statement, the variables, and we'll be looking at the if else condition as well. So program control, if else is same, if else condition how you write in the C, C++, and Java. And so I can also include the HTML along with the PHP statements such as PHP. If user state is logged in, then you have closed this one. Then what will be displayed? href, this should be displayed in HTML, or this should be displayed in HTML, or nothing should be displayed. That you can specify using HTML, PHP and HTML. Then switch case is also same. Switch whatever you want to means check the parameter here. The parameter whatever it matches, what output should be there, that will be specifying here. While also it's same. Okay, nothing much difference. For loop also is same as JavaScript. And also you can include different files by using this syntax. Okay, include some file.php, include some file.php, requires just for checking, and include will be actually including it. Okay, here's the difference between the include and require. It lies what happens when it the file is not included. Okay, with include a warning is displayed, with require an error is displayed. That's the only difference. Okay, scope within the include files, wherever you have the include file, in that scope only you can use the things. And the last one is about the functions. How do you write the function name and whatever you want to return. If you don't want to return anything, you just print it as follows. And you can have the parameters as well. Calling the function is same, just call the function name. If some parameter is there, then take some parameter as well. Parameter is passed as follows, whatever you want to pass. Sorry, not here. Okay, yeah, this is the parameter, show second, so you have to include dollar here, and that will be calling. When you will be calling, you'll be passing the parameters here as well. And one more thing I have to show you before that, this is the default value. If there is no value assigned to it, it will be taken as 1, and that will be returned. And yeah, this is the thing I wanted to talk about, which is the parameter passing by reference. So how do you pass the parameter by references? By this, not by reference, okay, this is by value, but by reference you'll be using an ampersand as well here. So what happens, whatever you pass here, that will be change will be made in that same variable. Okay, so here's a better example of it. What I am trying to say is, I've used this one. I've just called the change parameter without reference. Okay, so what happens, 15 will be passed and 315 will be changed, but that will not change the initial 15, so it will be 15 here itself. But when I pass by reference, at that time what will happen, 15 will become 315, and that change will be made inside the memory as well. So initial will become 315 instead of 15 as in the previous case. Okay, that's the pass by value and pass by reference difference. Variables, scope within the function, that also wherever it is defined, that will be the only scope of it, right? And if you have to access the global variable, for example, count is here, which is assigned as what, 56. Here you are using count, and that global count you are using. Okay, so 56 will be 56 will be the output, and here obviously 56 will be the output because it's the global scope. Okay, to use the global variable, you will have to use the keyword global. Okay, so that's all what is there in the PHP part. And what the questions I told to means mark it important and study that. Make sure you study before appearing for the exam. And that's all for this video, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.